Hello, I'm Heather Bratland, a Historic Resources Officer with the City County Planning Division. Welcome to this video unveiling for our P.H. Hanes Knitting Company historic marker. The marker sits along 6th Street between Church and Main Streets. The Forsyth County Historic Resources Commission protects and enriches the county's cultural, architectural, and archaeological heritage through the identification, designation, and preservation of historic resources. Please stay tuned to the end of this presentation, as we'll be unveiling an 11-minute mini-documentary produced to help tell the story of Hanes knitting. We added this component to unveilings last year because of COVID-19 limitations. We hope you enjoy it. Now, we'll hear from Mayor Joines.
Hello, I'm Alan Joines, Mayor of the City of Winston-Salem, and it's my pleasure to be a part of this unveiling of historic marker recognizing the Hanes Knitting Company here in Winston-Salem. Wonderful company, founded in 1902, and literally provided thousands and thousands of jobs for our community as well as the region. Not only that, the leaders of this community, of that organization, provided philanthropy, assistance to our city, provided other forms of support for our community over the years. I'm very grateful to the Historic Resources Commission for their program of installing these historic markers throughout the city, because it's important that we remember those foundations that we had here in Winston-Salem that made us the great city that we are today. So my congratulations this morning to P.H. Hanes Knitting Company, and thanks for all they have done and did do for our city.
Thank you, Mayor Joines. Now we'll hear from North Ward Council Member and Mayor Pro Tem, Dee Dee Adams.
Hello, Winston-Salem. I am Dee Dee Adams, Mayor Pro Tem, Council Member of the North Ward. Wanting to let you know of another individual born and raised here that we're commemorating with a historical marker. The Hanes marker was located downtown where the manufacturing buildings were. We want you to please take an opportunity to go there, read the marker, and take in some of our history.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Adams. The historic marker for the P.H. Hanes Knitting Company sits in the Northeast Ward. Here is Northeast Ward Representative, Council Member Barbara Haynes Burke.
Hello, I am Council Member Barbara Haynes Burke of the Northeast Ward, and I am honored to be able to celebrate this occasion alongside the residents of our city. The historical markers in our community are not just ornate, but work as a visual archive displaying the rich history of our beloved community. By reading them, you can instantly travel back in time and understand the significance of the eras they commemorate. With that being said, I would like to thank all the preceding City Council members and citizens who saw value in the preservation of our history by instituting these tangible displays. Thank you, Rosalie Haynes Horton, for making the recommendation for the location of the P.H. Hanes Knitting Company to be a part of this initiative. By this act, generations both present and future will be able to remember the pivotal role that this company played in our community's economy. It is our earnest desire to continue to honor and preserve the history of our great community through this initiative. I would like to encourage all our citizens to stop and engage with these markers. When you see them, stop, read, and learn about these great treasures that outline the narrative of Winston-Salem. Congratulations and thank you to P.H. Hanes Knitting Company on this historical marker. Also, we would like to thank the Hanes family brand and legacy for the impact that you have made on our community.
Thank you, Councilmember Burke. Now we'll hear from the Chair of the Historic Resources Commission, Kevin Owen.
Hello, my name is Kevin Owen, and I am the Chair of the Forsyth County Historic Resources Commission. On behalf of the Commission and the Historic Marker Committee, I'd like to thank you for attending this virtual marker unveiling event. The first historic markers were installed in 2001. To date, we have placed 60 markers throughout Forsyth County. Historic markers help our residents remember and our visitors learn about important places, events, and people in our community's collective history. Today, we celebrate the contributions of Pleasant Henderson Hanes, his sons, and their company, P.H. Hanes Knitting, to the history of Winston-Salem and Forsyth County. As you will hear, Hanes Knitting created an iconic product and was profitable while providing its employees with generous benefits. So once again, thank you for joining us today for this celebration of our local history.
Thank you, Kevin. Each historic marker you see around the city and county began with a nomination. It's reviewed by the Historic Marker Committee and then goes before the Forsyth County Historic Resources Commission, where it is approved to be installed. P.H. Hanes Knitting Company was nominated by our next guest, Rosalie Hanes Horton.
Hi everybody, my name is Rosalie Horton, and by genetic luck of the draw, I'm one of P.H. Hanes' great-great-grandchildren who lives here in town. Recently, at the behest of the Historic Properties Commission, Ed McNeil has put together this wonderful look at the life of Pleasant Henderson Hanes and his contributions to the fabric of North Carolina's textile history. So thank you very much to Michelle McCullough and Heather Bratland and everyone at the HRC for putting up this historic marker, and to the City of Winston-Salem, especially to Ed McNeil and Hunter Brady, who've done such an outstanding job bringing back to life this part of Winston-Salem's tobacco and textile heritage. Thanks, fellas. On behalf of the whole family, we're very grateful.
The marker reads, P.H. Hanes Knitting Company, known for the iconic product Hanes underwear, began here in 1902, after Pleasant Henderson Hanes sold his tobacco company. Hanes first made two-piece heavyweight underwear, producing 1,000 garments a day. Hanes delivered millions of garments to the U.S. military during both World Wars. In 1954, P. Huber Hanes Jr. became the third president of Hanes Knitting, which ultimately employed and provided benefits to over 9,000 textile workers in 6 plants. This site includes the Knitting Building, 1920 to 21, the Mill Building, 1928, and the Warehouse and Shipping Building, 1940. Now, let's see the story of the P.H. Hanes Knitting Company as told by our marketing and communications staff. Thank you for watching.
There is more than a lifetime between these logos. One from today that represents Hanes Brands Incorporated's Hanes line, and this one representing P.H. Hanes Knitting Company just as they started selling underwear under their own name in 1914. But the story of P.H. Hanes Knitting being celebrated with a historic marker on 6th Street between Church and Main doesn't begin with a cotton ball spun into a garment. It begins with tobacco in the 1800s.
Here is a field of tobacco, a commodity whose sweet-smelling, enjoyable-tasting smoke has contributed to man's pleasure for centuries.
In 1872, at just 27 years old, Pleasant Henderson Hanes and his brothers John Wesley Hanes and Benjamin Franklin Hanes created P.H. Hanes and Company. They specialized in making the oldest form of tobacco, plug tobacco. It's made from the heavier grades of the plant. The tobacco was mixed with a syrup and compressed into a brick-like mass the size of a deck of cards. Pleasant found success in the tobacco industry, producing multiple brands, including one bearing his own nickname, Early Bird. The company supplied tobacco users until 1900, when Pleasant sold the company to R.J. Reynolds.
Well, Ples was never a smoker himself, and his wife, Mary Lazora Fortune Hanes from Texas, was a proud member of the Women's Christian Temperance Union. So she was adamantly opposed to anything like tobacco or alcohol related, and in fact, this is why he turned down an offer from Asa Candler to be an investor in Coca-Cola, because she did not like the cocaine component to Coca-Cola.
Now there's a soft drink from the Coca-Cola Company that makes it fun to be thirsty.
Rosalie Hanes Horton is Pleasant's great-great-granddaughter.
So they sat and ruminated and decided upon the underwear business as something that people use every day, and that wasn't going to hurt them, but in fact help them in daily life.
Pleasant Henderson Hanes prepared for the new venture's present and future by sending his 21-year-old son, P. Huber Hanes, off to work in a textile mill in Mayodan. His job was to learn all he could about the business. And in 1902, Pleasant and his sons created P.H. Hanes Knitting with 50 sewing machines and 12 knitting machines in a building at 6th and Church Streets in downtown Winston-Salem. It went from a partnership to being incorporated in just a year. They had 150 workers and were steadily growing, satisfying men and boys' need for heavyweight knit shirts and underwear for the winter. They created their first union suits, the one-piece underwear, in 1913, but it was a year later before the buying public would hear the name P.H. Hanes Knitting. That's when Pleasant abandoned the model of only supplying products for private labels. They created a modest advertising budget and opened an ad agency in New York City and sold products under the Hanes brand for the first time.
This is New York, a miracle city, a city of tall buildings, narrow dark streets, magnificent parks, broad avenues, homes and schools, stores and theaters and palatial hotels. A fascinating city, an incredible city, the commercial, financial, trading, and cultural heart of a great nation, the United States of America.
While spending time in the Empire State, Pleasant gained an appreciation for Central Park and the emerging urban park effort that had begun around the country. He brought that effort to Winston-Salem, where he donated 50 acres of land to city government for a public park, Hanes Park, as a gift commemorating the merger of Winston and Salem in 1913. From 1916 to 1918, the Hanes brand became a significant contributor to the World War I effort in supplying underwear for the U.S. government. They could not provide Hanes-branded products for the public during the war, but within a week of the armistice, the company had enough commitments to claim the next 10 months of production. P.H. Hanes Knitting grew with the town. It was a growing employer in 1920 when Winston-Salem was the largest city in the state, and under Pleasant's leadership, it grew to more than 5,000 employees. Not only was the company buying millions of dollars in cotton from North Carolina farmers, paying taxes into the community, and sending its leadership to sit on several boards and commissions, both around the city and the state, but it was also generously providing for its employees. The Hanes workforce enjoyed a rich benefit package. P.H. Hanes Knitting paid the full cost of the employee pension plan, no matching requirement for employees. Health care, paid. Vacations, holidays, unemployment, and workers' compensation, all provided 100% by the company.
Because it was the right thing to do. And P.H. Hanes was the opposite of a robber baron and a greed is good capitalist. On the contrary, he truly believed that business and industry were first and foremost a public service, and that the goal should be to uplift the prosperity of the entire community, line everybody's pockets and not just his own. And that was quite different from the prevailing ethos of the day. So he was not about exploiting the labor force to eke out more profits or compromising the quality of the product ever. And he knew it was better business to have a partnership with labor instead of to be antagonistic to them, because frankly he was so appreciative of all of the hard work. He knew that that's what made the business probably more than he did. So he was always about showing gratitude to the workers and increasing the benefits package as quickly as they could.
Pleasant ran the business until his death at 79 years old in 1925. His eldest son, P. Huber Hanes, the one he sent off to work in the textile mills in Mayodan, had been the vice president and general manager. His experience in the mill was key in his years of leadership from 1925 to 1956. During his time, P.H. Hanes Knitting continued to sell to the U.S. government, turning out well over 40 million garments for the Army, Navy, and Marines, an effort that earned them the coveted E for Excellence award for never missing a shipment or having defects. The company had more than 17 acres of production space under roof in Winston-Salem in 1938 with 4 plants and was on the state's honor roll for sanitation and good working conditions. However, the demand for the product by civilians after the war led to Huber expanding by having plants built in Sparta and Jefferson, North Carolina, and Galax, Virginia. When P. Huber Hanes Sr. retired in 1954, his son P. Huber Hanes Jr. became the 3rd generation to run the company. After his first full year, they recorded a 21% increase in sales, the best in the company's history. In 1963, sales were in excess of $45 million, almost twice what it had been in 1950. And it continued to grow with plants being built in Texas and New Mexico. Huber Hanes Jr., an accomplished athlete, also contributed to the culture of the company through the creation of a company recreation program. It included golfing, fishing, bowling, square dances, rodeos, big barbecues, and picnics. The company was expanding its culture from the walls of its massive brick buildings into the leisure time of its 9,200 employees, and all of it was being documented by the in-house magazine, The Hanes Knitter. Successive years under Huber Jr. saw growth, including a plant being built in Davie County and an eventual merger with Hanes Hosiery Mills to create the Hanes Corporation. Rosalie is pleased with seeing the story captured in the marker.
The 3 generations of Hanes men who ran the business ran it with an open hand and not an iron fist. And that's a legacy that the community can be proud of civic and industrial largesse, and we are too. So we're glad that a little bit of the story is now being told.
Historic markers tell the story of how a piece of property was once used and its impact. This one on 6th Street between Main and Church Streets stands where almost 120 years ago you could likely smell tobacco in the air, see men and women emerging from the brick buildings with cotton dust in their hair, making a product that was needed then and now all over the world. And still today, if you see this marker, you can look up and see the remaining portion of one of the smokestacks of P.H. Hanes Knitting Company, or a converted factory building, now apartments, still sporting the H for Hanes. For the city of Winston-Salem, I'm Ed McNeil.